You're listening to the FitMIND FitBODY podcast, where we explore the connection between running and positive mental health. We do this by talking to runners from all walks of life who generously share their experiences with us. So you don't miss an episode, I've created an email list for you to join. Check the show notes for more details. Without further ado, I'm your host, Michelle Frost. Let's get moving. Today on the podcast, we have yet again another incredible guest, Kent Mullins. Kent's journey from growing up on the Gold Coast with ultra-endurance athlete parents to finding his own path through running is truly remarkable. In this episode, he shares how he overcame struggles with depression and serious substance abuse, finding solace and purpose in endurance sports. He talks about the pivotal moment that led him to take on the Ironman challenge and his experiences with ultra-endurance events, including a 48-hour track race. Kent's story is about resilience, transformation, and the healing power of running. So get ready for a very vulnerable, heartfelt and inspiring conversation. You won't want to miss this. Enjoy. Today on FitMIND FitBODY, I am very excited, as usual, to introduce you to a new guest and a new friend of mine, Kent Mullins. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me. I haven't been on a podcast in probably about 2 years, so this is cool.
Hey,
This
that's
is
awesome.
cool.
Now, am I right? You've got your own podcast as well, which we can talk a bit more about later.
No, we don't have to talk about this is yours. Like I don't know, like yeah, I've got a podcast and I don't want to talk about mine. This is your podcast. This is your thing. If you guys want to listen, it is the Running Deep podcast. But again, no, this is yours.
I love it.
You take it away.
We will put links because after listening to this, your story today, people are probably going to want to dig in a bit more and find out more about you, Kent. So we will put links to your podcast, but we'll also talk about that a bit more later. How's that? Deal?
Sounds good.
Perfect.
Good.
All right, let's start with, where did you grow up?
Oh, I'm a Gold Coast boy, Queensland, born and bred.
And you're still there?
Yeah, I moved to Melbourne. I've moved around a bit, and I moved to Melbourne for about 3 years and got pretty over it. And then moved back and yeah, stayed here.
You like the warm weather?
Yeah.
Tell me about your school
And
life.
oh God.
Tell me a little bit about, what was that like? Like, did you do sport? Have you got siblings? Give us a bit of a picture of what Kent's
I'm going to give you
growing up
guys
was
a bit of a picture. Sport has been ingrained in me from a very, very early age.
Yeah.
Not that I wanted to do sport. I guess my, a bit of context. Both of my parents are ultra endurance athletes.
Oh my.
Mum did the North Face 100K. That was years ago. This was, I think it's now UTA.
Yeah.
So it was the old North Face.
Mhm.
She's done Comrades Marathon 3 times.
Wow.
Dad used to live over in South Africa, so he's done it, God, 8 or 9 times now. So
Incredible.
yeah, just from a very early age, I was just, I guess, conditioned to somewhat enjoy running.
Mm-hmm.
And triathlons as well. Mum and Dad have done half Ironmans. Mum's just completed her, I think, was it Bustleton Ironman?
Yep.
And yeah, I guess you could say it was a very sporty upbringing. I was more of a surfer, bodyboarder.
Yeah.
Competed with all that, and that was my passion at the time. But it sort of transitioned, and I've made peace with it with my dad. He was very, what's the word? He just wanted the best for me.
Yeah.
He wanted the best for me. So, it was getting me involved in triathlon, getting me involved in little athletics, and, waking me up every Saturday morning at 6 o'clock, with your, I guess, competitions outworking you. So that sort of mindset was ingrained in me from 12 to 13 years old.
Wow.
And
This
maybe
probably
that's
feels like talking to my children because I made them go to running club.
yeah. Look, there is a place for it, I guess. For me, when I look back, I sort of am grateful that I was pushed to be that kid. But that there's always that I have to be better in the back of my head.
That
Even,
competition side of it.
yeah, not for the enjoyment, for the competition, to be the best, to be, to keep pushing. And that does have its place. But I'm in I guess, point in my life where it's not serving me anymore.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of pressure around all that. And if it doesn't come with a level of how do I deal with that pressure, like some people can seem to have a natural ability to be able to deal with some of that kind of pressure. And others of us need, I don't know, mindfulness. I talk a bit about mindfulness on the podcast, Ken, but some skills to deal with it along the way as well, so that it's not always about the competition, but it's about the enjoyment of the activity that you're doing.
That's it. I think that's the transition point now. I just want to enjoy sport for what it is. Movement. The longevity of movement. I want to be able to move my body with my kids when I'm 50, 60 years old and not be tired. Like that's the end goal.
You want to be me. I'm 55 now. I'm doing
yeah, like
I love it.
I want to be able to just enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
But that is so hard from a childhood of structure and training and I don't care if you don't want to train, you train. I bought you a bike. You have to train for this triathlon now, sort of gaslighting. Again, I have
it's all
had the conversation. It's all been sorted, but that's a little inside to, I guess, my childhood.
Do you have siblings?
I do. I have a sister, Ellie.
Is she younger or older than you?
She's younger. She's 24.
Okay.
Yes.
She's sporty
Won't go into that one.
Is she sporty?
No, 24. No, 24. She's not. She's just into what did you say? She's not into much. I guess I got the sporty gene. She's enjoying her life. That's all.
It's funny on the podcast I talk to obviously a lot of parents, but also lots of people reflecting on, we've all had parents, what it was like growing up and depending on what kind of parents we had and all that kind of stuff. And when you're a parent who is sporty, it's reflecting on that and wanting it to be an example. Obviously, the way we all treat that, it can be different, but wanting it to be example for the kids so that as the kids grow up, even if they choose not to be sporty or as an adult, they know it's in their toolbox, I like to say, because their parents, even your sister, even if she's not sporty or doesn't identify like that at the moment, she knows that in the future, if for some reason getting fitter is necessary because of whatever's going on in her life, it's something that's accessible to her because she's seen that her parents could do it. Do you know what I mean? So there's elements of that which we talk about sometimes, which I think is fascinating. But it's interesting to hear from you that, it wasn't all roses growing up and your identity around sport, and it wasn't, all glowing. I love this competition. I loved, doing well or not doing well. It wasn't a positive experience for you.
I hated it. Like I genuinely I despised it. Every Saturday morning waking up at 4 o'clock to do triathlon. Am I allowed to swear?
You can swear if you like.
I fucking hated it. I hated it. I really, really.
Wow.
There was times I enjoyed it. There was times, that were fun. But all in all, I didn't enjoy it, and I think that was just that. I felt like I was being punished. A perfect example of this. I went to nationals for 400-meter sprint.
Wow. Yeah.
And that was a wild card. I've never been there before. I've never come close to qualifying for nationals. And it was a wild card, and I'm up against the best in Australia. I came dead last. you know, I did a PB of, I think, 56 seconds. The guy that won did 48 seconds. It was insane. But, you know, I didn't have a coach. I was training on my own, and I got yelled at for coming dead last. You know, and that's, to me, I was like, no, but I got my PB. But it wasn't good enough. Even though I got my PB, it wasn't good enough. And that was the notion, that was, you know, the idea of my achievements was equivalent to my self-worth.
Yeah.
There was a direct correlation. And that's just how it was. You know, throw in, you know, between the ages of 15 and 17, I lost 6 to 7 mates to either suicide or just death. Just like, you know, drowning or being hit by a car or car accidents. And, you know, I hate this one thing, which is sport. And then all this other crap builds up in my life. You know, sport wasn't even an outlet for me. I had no outlet, you know. So I guess a lot of people I guess you can't really, someone's trauma is someone's trauma.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and probably people have had it a lot worse. But for me, you know, the relationship there between me and sport has been so on and off, is where I'm trying to get at. You know, people say that they used it as an outlet. I was just forced into it. And with everything else that happened, I didn't know what to do.
It didn't give you an outlet that you could have used, perhaps, you know, when you were going through your friends passing away and things like that as well. What can I say? When you were at school, apart from sport, was it like academically? Was there anything there that you were good at or enjoyed? You know, you don't have to be good at it, but just enjoyed.
At school, like, I went to a private school till year 10 until we got asked to leave.
Oh. Okay.
It's a story. We weren't bad kids. We just didn't fit in there. We had a group of friends that we didn't do anything bad. We weren't fighting people. We just didn't fit in. You had the very pompous, you know, look at me, academically sort of families, very wealthy families. And, you know, birds of a feather flock together. Yeah. I found my group, and our group, we're still mates to this day. You know, they're mates for life. And we were undesirable students. You know, we were always getting in trouble for the small things. And then I sort of realized that it's time to go. We had the big sit down conversation with the principal and saying, we're not going to expel you, but we're going to ask you to leave. Wow. And it was this notion of, again, not good. You know what I mean? That's been a common theme in my life. Not good enough for the school. So anyway, we found a Palm Beach, Currumbin, which is at the time was a very, very sporty school. A lot of the A grade footy players, NRL players, sorry. They've come from PBC. Few of them were in my class. But then funnily enough, you know, my grades went up. I started getting, you know, A's, B's, and the odd C. But I liked where I was. I enjoyed where I was. So academically, if I gave it a crack, you know, I didn't study. I didn't do anything at school. I just enjoyed being around people, and I ended up walking up. Do you guys have an OP system still?
What is OP?
I don't even know what it stands for, but I think Queensland, we've got OP, which OP1 is like you're the best of the best. I don't even know how it all works, but I ended up walking.
We do have some scoring system, but it has a different acronym for years 11 and 12.
Yeah. I think it's all, So I ended up walking away with an OP9, which was, you know, goes to 21, and I didn't study. I know if I could have applied myself, I would have gotten a better score, but I had no interest in uni. I have no interest. I'm more of a creative type. Yeah. You know, arts and craft is my thing. That's, you know, sounds weird as a runner, but No, I like
That's
painting.
awesome.
I like creating things. I just like creating things. That's my, I guess, that's my thing.
That's your
That's my thing.
outlet.
Yeah.
What did it look like then when you left school? How did you develop that?
I didn't.
Mm,
What did I do when I left school?
I don't know. What did you do?
I did absolutely nothing.
Sweet.
I didn't
I've
even have
got
a
two
gap
boys in
year.
my house right now, by the way, a 21-year-old and a 23-year-old, my sons. They're not
Um,
really doing anything. Just
but that's
nice.
okay. I guess there's always this thing of you have to know what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. I'm giving
Again,
them grace to work it out.
we'll get into this, but I guess it's in our society where you have to know, you have to
Mm.
be someone, you have to do more, be more,
Mhm.
I had no idea what I wanted to do. At one point, I wanted to be a business owner. At one point, I wanted to be the director of something. I had no idea what I
Did
wanted to
it
do.
did it feel like along those lines? I sometimes wonder because as I told you, I've got 5 children. I wonder whether the idea that when you choose that thing, that's that thing for life, even though intellectually now we know that most people change careers. I don't know what the number is, but 3 or 4 times at least before they're done, if not more. I probably changed mine a lot more than that. Um, so is there that pressure that if I choose something, I'm stuck with it? Do you think, or do you? Because I wonder about that sometimes with my kids.
The way I looked at it was I've just done, 12 years of schooling,
Mm.
every single day. Give us a fucking break. Like, why do we have to know what we're doing? And my dad was very much, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? When are
Yeah.
you moving out? Um, you know, be a man, go see the world,
Yeah.
whatever it was. Um, and I didn't have that in me. I
Yeah.
just wanted to go surf. I wanted to be a boy. I wanted to
Mhm.
party. Um, I think, that's where the party scene came in.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I'm in hospitality now,
Yeah.
and now I'm the food and beverage manager of quite a big hotel,
Mhm.
and I had no plan to be that. There was no like, I'm going to take these steps to get to this. It
Mhm.
just happened. And I guess that's the beauty of, I guess, life. Like you, not having a plan has gotten me this far, and I'm happy. I've got two beautiful children. I'm living in a nice place at the moment. When I zoom out, life's pretty good. And I didn't have a plan. There
Yeah.
was no plan. I don't think we need to have a plan. Just let it
Yeah.
be.
Yeah. You you made as opportunities have come along in your life, you made decisions. I'll take that job or this. So
Mm.
it wasn't like it's the saying yes to opportunities. I think there are, pivotal moments that happen when we're on reflection. You often don't know they're happening when you're in the middle of them. Um, and obviously you said yes to enough things that have got you to where you are now in a place where you're reasonably happy, I suppose, without having, as you said, a long
Mm.
vision that goes
Mm.
way out to wherever the future is for you.
Yeah, like I just, 2020 hindsight, when you look
Mm.
back, you can connect the dots. And
Yeah.
even if I look back and connect the dots, I guess anyone can do that and connect the dots. It, it just sort of happened. I
Mm.
think we've all got to take a bit of, I guess, that leap of faith and just have faith that it's all going to work out.
Mm.
I didn't have faith for a very long time, and as soon as I did, it just fell into place.
That's
Yeah,
interesting. What
Ah,
gave you that, do you
over the,
think? Sorry. Like
I
what
think
it's interesting statement.
I didn't have faith for a very long time, and I
Mm.
guess if we're going to go this direction, as I said, from a very early age, I guess I have had depression for a very, very long time,
Mhm.
very, very long time, and I went to a very dark place. I have been in a very dark place for a very, very long time.
Yeah.
Suicide's on my mind regularly. I'm
Okay.
sorry to go this deep,
That's all right. No, it's
But
important.
I think it will play a bigger picture in, you know, who I am today and where I'm going with this is,
Yeah.
no, I've been to that dark spot. I've been to that, you know, curling up into a ball,
Yeah.
not wanting to come out of the room, you know, drugs, alcohol, you know,
Mhm.
alcoholism's a big one in my life. That's how I soothe myself. You know, I
Mhm.
was the party boy. Um, and there's, you know, I've tried to kill myself a few times. I've been there. I've been to that place of no hope. I
Yeah.
know what that feels like. I always say to people, the way I describe it, if you watch Batman Returns, you know, he's
Mhm.
in this prison down the bottom,
Yeah.
um, the big hole in the middle of the desert, and he's trying to get up and he keeps failing, tries to get up, keeps failing. Finally, on the last go, he just has that leap of faith to go, fuck it. If it doesn't happen, I'm going to die and fall.
Yeah.
But he does. He makes it out of the hole, and that's, I guess, perfect representation of, you know, where my life is now.
Mm.
I kept trying, kept treading water. That's what I keep saying. Kept treading water, just like kept my head above just enough to survive. And you
Yeah.
know, I had my kids. I think they saved my life. I think to this
Yeah.
day, if I didn't have children, I
Mhm.
don't think I'd be here. I really don't. It got very, very bad.
Mm.
Um, and I guess intrinsically, it gave me hope. And I've never had that before. It was this, just keep fighting another day, just keep fighting another day.
Yeah.
And it's worked out. You know, it's just holding on to uh, that next minute,
Mhm.
that next hour. Just keep holding on, just keep treading water until you're okay. That's all it took. And you might be not, you know, for some people they might not be okay, just like me, for 2, 3, 4 years. But I kept fighting, kept treading water. And I'm living a very happy, I guess, in regard to my previous life, a very happy life. But it was hope. It was just having hope, just, you know, trusting in the process, trusting that it's all going to work out. But you've got to put in the work.
Did you get help at the time?
No way. You know, back in the day, it was, how do I explain it? I was the funny, charismatic.
Yep.
You know, I guess what I've been told, that I'm a very handsome man, and you
You're
know,
pretty good.
I was,
You're a good looking kid.
but I thank you. But I had that energy. Like people wanted to be around
Yeah.
me, and I had to be funny. And guess what made me funnier? Drugs and alcohol. You know,
Yeah.
my things were cocaine and alcohol. You
Yeah.
know, to this day, nothing would make me happier to obliterate myself and get a
Yeah.
bag and forget my life.
Yeah.
Oh, even thinking about it, get goosebumps. But I know where
Wow.
that life leads me.
Yeah.
Um, I had to be. Sorry, I've lost my train of thought.
Well, we're talking about help. You said no, you didn't get help.
No. Sorry, that's right.
Mm.
My help was drugs and alcohol.
Mm.
You know, that back then you didn't reach out for help.
Mm.
You know, you don't. You don't. You don't do that.
What
You know,
gave you
and
hope?
even if
Sorry to interrupt, but because you
what
keep
gave
talking
me
about
hope
hope, which is
was
like that's obviously been the guiding light for you, or it feels like it has.
my kids. My
Mm.
kids.
Okay. Yeah.
Um, again, I nearly lost them to alcohol. I was
Mm.
a horrendous father, horrendous husband or partner at the time. You know,
Mhm.
it was, again, paint the picture. I'm in hospitality.
Yeah.
I was immature at the time. You know, I'm running at the age of what, 20, 21. I'm on big money.
Yes.
I'm young. I'm handsome. I'm running this, you know, high-end 5-star Japanese restaurant.
Mhm.
I'm the king. You know, I'm the big boss. I tell you what to do. You know, and I still
Charismatic.
had, you know, charismatic
Mhm.
flair, charm,
Mhm.
and you know, I start drinking on shift, and drinking
Mhm.
turns into 2 drinks, and for next thing you know, I've been drunk every single day for 2 weeks.
Wow.
That's not enough. I got to a point where I couldn't go to work at the end. I'm so young. This is the thing that kills me, is that was what I thought was living. It scares me even now to think about it, but I couldn't go to work sober. I'd stop in at the bar to have a quick shot or a beer to go in, because I wasn't that person that everyone wanted me to be. So to keep that up, I'm too drunk at 1 p.m. I have to, hey mate, can you drop off a bag?
Wow.
Mate would drop it off. I was on good, again, I was the king. And that's back in the day, that's what it was. And, tee that up with having a newborn child. It's an absolute disaster. I was chucking my whole pay through the pokies. I'd say I'd finish at 11 p.m. on a Thursday night. I would call up my wife, hey, I'm stuck at work. No, I wasn't. I went to the pokies to throw my money away, come back. I wouldn't come back till 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and it wasn't until I hit a low, a very low. My wife, well, she's my wife now, but my partner at the time, she called her dad, who's a senior sergeant in the police, to say, I've had enough. You need to come sort him out. So, I won't go into the details of that, but that shook me up. But it, I did high range drink driving. I got locked up, put holes in the wall. I pissed away all my money. Got in fights. Purposefully would go out just to get into a fight. And it wasn't all these things that sort of got me sober. It was probably two years ago, Easter. I've been on and off sober for a very long time, but this is where the hope piece comes in. I've came home, so it was Easter night. Mate wants to go out for a drink. We had a drink, Coke involved, felt bad about it. Come home at 4 o'clock in the morning on Easter morning, and I wasn't the Easter bunny. My kids were waiting for me to wake up, but I was hungover and I didn't want to, and that was it. It wasn't all this shit that I put my wife through, put my kids through, put my family through. All it was I didn't turn up to my children as a dad, as a father should. That's all it was. And that, when I look at that, that's hope. My kids gave me hope. And this is why I say, and I tell them, they saved my life. They honestly, they saved my life.
How old are they?
That's where
your children.
Lily's 6 and Noah's 4. But that's what I'm saying. Like they gave me hope to keep fighting. They gave me whatever. I'm going to call it hope.
Yeah,
there was
like
that
a reason.
spark.
Like everybody needs something that they can. That's always there. It's going to be a present as well. It's not going to be, elusive and disappear. Like it's a very solid thing to kids. They're very. They're not going anywhere ever. No. You're always going to be a dad, so they're always going to be a part of the reason to keep being sober, as you said to me earlier.
That's it. Like, I don't get me wrong. I would love to have a beer. There's not a part of me that goes, oh, like, can't. There is that part of me that goes, you can't have a beer, Kent. Like, come on. No, my desire. It's a beautiful day out today. Get a couple mates. Get 2-3 bags of cocaine, just get written off, completely talk absolute rubbish. That would be nice. I'd love to do that. But I know where that life leads. I can't have one. I have to have all of them.
Like I've spoken to alcoholics as well before. And as I've told you, my son has a bit of an addiction also. Is there something... Does it get less? Do you think that in the future, like, because I can still hear, obviously, as you can, the real desire that you have. And I know that alcoholics talk about it, it's always there. Like it doesn't ever completely go away, but does it lessen? Like, do you think that in the future
No.
it'll be a little bit less the desire? I used to smoke cigarettes, right, for 7 years. Um, I ran it when I was young, and then I smoked through that sort of teen, early 20s. Then I had my second child, I gave up before when I got pregnant with her, and haven't smoked, since I
Mm.
was 24 or something, like, I don't know, a long time. But I'm a very anti-smoker, but I think maybe smoking is a bit different than what alcohol and drugs does to your body. So I'm just trying to, like, does it wane or does it lessen? Do you think, or are you expecting it to? Obviously not yet, still a little new for you.
The way I look, I'm got some funny stories, but I vape.
Yeah.
I'm addicted to nicotine. That is
Yeah.
one thing that I
My
can't get rid
daughter, I
of.
have another story. She's 32,
Mm.
30. She's been smoking and vaping all through her 20s, and she's just started running just over, not quite a year ago. And now she's doing ultras and doing really well, like time
Mm.
wise and stuff. And she only stopped vaping about 3 months ago or something like that.
But
She's really
on
happy.
my
It's good.
on my 48-hour race, I was vaping whilst I was racing, and people going, "Are you kidding?" I'm like, I can't. This is my thing. Like, fuck off. This is my. Just let me have it.
Imagine what'll happen if you ever decide to stop. Like the lung capacity
It's
you'll have.
but
You'll be
that's
a machine.
I can still run a 41-minute 10K. I can do an 18:11 5K. I've got the capacity,
Oh
but it's like
gosh.
the way I look at it is, nicotine's
Sorry.
a physical. It's a physical addiction. Like, you
Mm,
feel your
mm,
body. It's like you get real
mm,
withdrawals within your body,
mm.
where I use it to calm myself down, but it's a
Mm.
physical, it's an actual
Yeah.
chemical reaction. The way I look at, cocaine
Mm.
and alcohol, it was my warm hug.
Yeah. It's
It,
situational too, isn't it? Like,
yeah, it was the thing that, when we look at, a child running to a mum,
mm-hmm,
it's the arms out, and it's
mm-hmm,
the the warm embrace.
mm-hmm.
That's what I look at alcohol. It was the thing that
Yeah.
soothed me when I was going through that part of my life.
Tough time.
I didn't have to feel. I got to be drunk. I love the feeling of being drunk.
Unconditional type of,
Yeah,
I don't want to use the
it's
word
like
love, but it's like that
no,
unconditional
no, no.
acceptance,
That's
maybe,
what.
instead of
Yeah, I could be who I wanted
Mm,
when I was on drugs and alcohol. I felt what I would call normal
mm,
in myself, that I could be this person and not get judged. There was no repercussion, or there was repercussions, but it was like, Kent's drunk. He's coked up. Like, this is just who he is. So there was that notion of I could be who I want. And also, it soothed me. Like I remember it started very early, but I would sit in a dark, dingy room and like listen to The Cure,
yeah.
and I wouldn't have my phone on me. I'd just sit and
Mhm.
just enjoy being drunk, and
Mm,
I get so drunk where I'd spew on myself, and that feeling will never go away.
mm,
You just get, like anything, you just get stronger, and you just know how to do it. Like last
mm,
night, I was tossing and turning because I just felt like a beer.
mhm.
And I'm a year, I'm in nearly,
Two.
a year and
Mm.
whatever. I don't have to stop counting. I just identify as someone who doesn't drink anymore, but
Yeah.
that feeling doesn't go away. But I
Mm.
know how to deal with it now.
Yeah.
I don't think I could ever pick up another bottle just because I know where that goes. I
Mhm.
know exactly where it goes. I lose everything.
Yeah.
And I've worked my ass off to make sure I'm not that person anymore.
Mm.
I've worked so hard to get so far away from that person. And I'm not going to let a beer ruin that.
How is that? How hard is that for you in that you work in hospitality still?
Not hard at all.
It's okay.
Because being vulnerable with my staff,
Mm-hmm.
they understand. So, a perfect example, we were out for like a team dinner,
Mhm.
and I got a non-alcoholic beer.
Mhm.
You know, and that's not triggering for me. It's when I feel like shit that triggers me to drink.
Yeah.
But I'm with good people. I'm with people that enjoy me for who I am sober.
Mhm.
And I've poured the beer into a glass and I've started drinking the beer. And I had 3 or 4 people like come over and grab the beer off me.
Oh,
They said, Kent, what are you doing? What are you doing? And I'm like, no, it's non-alcoholic. You know, so that was
so
like,
support. I think
there
that's
was support.
wonderful. Mm.
They get it. So, you know, when we're doing cocktail tastings, they know not to offer me. They
Mm.
know that, you know, Kent doesn't drink anymore. He just doesn't drink.
Yeah.
So they have a lot of trust in me. I have a lot of trust in them, you know, when we are doing the tastings, that the cocktail tastes good. Or you make me a non-alcoholic version for me to taste if it's worth putting on the menu.
Yeah.
You know, and then another story for that, we had our staff party.
Mhm.
And I'm going to say that I drank by accident
Mhm.
because I thought it was a non-alcoholic beer next to a mid-strength. I've grabbed the mid-strength and people were like, what are you doing? And I drank it. Again, they jumped on me and said, no, you grabbed the wrong beer. And I've just swallowed it.
Oh,
And they're
no.
going, oh, Ken, your streak, you know. I'm like, no, this wasn't intentional, so I'm not
Yeah.
counting it. You know, I
Good
did
job.
not mean to do this, so
Yeah.
I'm not counting that as, you know, that breaks
Yeah.
my sobriety.
Yeah.
But they were very supportive. They're like, no, like we didn't see anything. I'm like, no, I didn't have the intent to drink, so I'm not counting that. It was a complete accident.
Yeah.
You know. But they were they were very supportive. So in hospitality, I don't have an issue.
Yeah.
You know, I don't go out after work anymore. I come straight home. You know, I'm not working 60, 70-hour weeks.
Yeah.
That was, you know, back in the day, that was expected. Times have changed now.
Mm.
So I still have the urge to drink
Mm.
quite often, but over the period of 4 or 5 years, I've been able to, I guess, as you have a toolbox
Yeah.
of things that I can pull out and go, no, not today. Yeah.
So that incredible, it's really inspiring story, actually. Like what you've done. How old are you now? I meant to ask you that before.
28.
So you're still a baby.
Yeah.
So what you've been able to achieve just in that, like you've lived a lifetime really, just because of the experiences you've had and, you know, the extremes, like you've had extremes of experiences and I think that teaches you and matures us. It's often beyond our years. So that's amazing. Where does running come in? Like we're on a running podcast. When did you jump on the running bandwagon as an adult, not being pushed by your parent?
So it also, this story, I don't know if you saw, I just recently did Port Macquarie Ironman. Um, this plays into me being an absolute piece of shit. I came home, I told my wife I gonna be home at 9 o'clock, and what do you know? 2 beers turn into 10. I come home at about 1 a.m. She's still up with my newborn, Lily. I walked in the door. There's just this face of absolute disgust.
Yeah.
Like absolute, like, yeah, why am I with this? Not even a man, this kid. I'm like, fuck this bitch. Like, you know, I'm whatever. Sitting there, my gut is hanging over my belt line. I'm eating a Big Mac and I've got a quarter pounder. I remember it so vividly. And I realized in that moment how much of a just waste of space I was. And I looked down on my YouTube screen and the Ironman finish line was there. I'm like, and I remember, you know, back in the days to do Ironman, and I'm looking at it going like, holy shit. Like this person just ran 3.8 kilometers, swam 3.8 kilometers, 180 kilometer bike ride, and then a marathon.
Yeah.
And I just started crying. I just started bawling my eyes out. And I put the food down. I looked at my wife and I said, I'm going to do this one day for you. I'm going to do this. Oh, fuck. Sorry.
No, beautiful.
Um,
I love that.
and then on the 5th of May, I completed that Ironman.
So good. How did it feel?
Oh, it was a very, very long, hard journey to get to that. But that was the catalyst. It was that video.
Yep.
I the next week I bought a bike, started swimming, did a couple sprint distances. And, I still had issues with alcohol. I still was drinking, not as much. I was still trying to find that balance.
Well, Sport Australia means beer. It means,
but
I
that's
hate
it.
beer. But sports in Australia means drinking, doesn't it? Quite a lot, especially in the warmer places of Australia, but everywhere really. It's culturally
I just
accepted thing.
Yeah. And I was trying to find that balance, and the drinking became less and less, but then it was this cycle of if I didn't train I could drink, so I always had to be training. And they say, Kent, you've swapped one addiction for another.
Yeah.
I'm like, I tell you what I did.
Interesting.
I did. But it got to a point where it started the training came first. And I was an amateur athlete. The training never comes first in our lives, unless you want to go pro or whatever. It was continuous. Sorry, I can't pick up the kids. I have to train.
Yeah.
And I tell you what, the training was like a 10-kilometer bike ride. It wasn't anything. It wasn't a 3-hour bike ride. It was just something small, but it always had to come first. And I put my wife last. I put my kids last. So it became, there's this trend of me for it's
personality.
Yeah.
So,
I got into that. I, at one point, started a mental health run club called Run for Your Life. And, 3 days.
Sorry, I got to interrupt. In 2024, I wrote a book. It's called Run for Your Life. Anyway, keep going.
The universe.
Snappo.
So it was called Run for Your Life. We got quite big, but it became, for me personally, too much. I hadn't even figured myself out, and yet people were coming to me for, what do I do? What do I do? And I'm like, I'm still figuring this. Like, I can be here for you, but I don't have the answers. I'm only going off my own experience, and I'm still living the experience. I don't know what to do if you want to kill yourself. All I can say is don't go for it. Yeah. So, the introduction into ultras, I just realized mum and dad had done it. And through Run for Your Life, my first ultra, and this is when David Goggins just came out. This is where he wasn't mainstream. He was just this, this black guy that was really, really crazy with these massive adventures. Yeah. So I went, fuck it, to raise some money for Beyond Blue, let's run our normal 5K route for 10 hours.
Of course.
Let's just do it. And we got a few people involved, and we raised, I think it was like $7,000. And
awesome.
I ended up running 70 kilometers on no training.
Wow.
And I got a stress fracture, and that was the first initial, like, oh my God, what is this? Like, I've never experienced, and it was 36 degrees. It was during summer.
Wow.
It was for my first ultra, it was insane.
You still went on and did more though. You didn't say, well, this ultra thing is not for me. You obviously got enough out of it. Not just raising funds and awareness for Beyond Blue, but it also fed something for you or provided you something emotionally.
In a way, it fed my ego.
Okay.
It really did. Like, I can admit that, again, I was the man. I'm not drinking anymore. I'm this, I'm sober. People look up to me. I'm this, athlete. People go, oh my God. but really I was small fry. It was just like on the Gold Coast at the time, ultra endurance wasn't a thing. Like it was, but it wasn't mainstream like it is this year.
I know it's really taken off.
Everyone's doing. They went through the phase I went through. You know, everyone's doing these really long things, big things, go, 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 go. And the question I ask is, would they do it? Would I have done it without social media? No. You know, fed the ego, the comments, the likes. Wow, Kent, you did such a big thing. When I, 2020 hindsight, I look back and I go, all I was doing was chasing the high.
The kudos.
I was chasing chasing the Strava map. I was chasing the you are worth it. You are worthy. Wow. So I've done, I've done a few 12-hour races. I've done a few 50Ks. I've done a whole bunch of marathons. A lot of them are self, I guess.
They're not an organized event.
I've done them. No, yeah. I don't think I'll ever sign up to a marathon unless I get a free ticket.
Yeah.
It doesn't interest me. It's just not long enough for me to go deep on myself.
Tell me about that.
The closest thing I came to that was I did the Butter 48. So Butter 48 is a 48-hour track race. You run around a track for 48 hours, 400-meter track.
I've been a person who ticks off someone in a 12-hour one.
So I wanted to go that step further. And I was raising money for someone about a year ago. He was in a car accident in Bali, got his head smashed in. To get him back over was $150,000 on the flight. So just to do something for somebody else that was bigger than me, I went, fuck it. Let's sign up to something that is so beyond what I've ever
extreme.
I've never done anything. So longest I've gone prior to that was 16 hours.
Yeah.
Now I've done a few 100-kilometer races and that was the longest. So this is going, I'm doubling plus more.
Yeah.
So, on all these races, you always hear it. You find out more about yourself. What's your limit? What's your and you really, really do. But then it gets to a point where it's like, how do I articulate it? On a trail race, there's lots to look at. Yeah. There's a lot more going on. On a track race, it's the same 400 meters for 48 hours.
Turn around every 2 hours.
Yeah. So I found this one was the one that I'm going, oh my God, I'm going to go deep on myself, which I did. I learned what my body was capable of. And the main theme with me is I'm not a big trainer. My biggest training week was like 80 kilometers, 90 kilometers.
Okay.
My old coach would have said I'm the unluckiest athlete that he's ever coached.
Oh.
Because I'd either get sick.
Yeah.
It's the universe telling me I'm doing too much. Again, hindsight. But I'm either getting sick, stress fracture. Like there's always an injury. There's always something that would happen. So I'd have 2-3 weeks of really consistent training, high volume, and then suddenly it'd just fall off COVID or whatever it was. So anyway, I went into this race. Funnily enough, one of the guys that I'm very, very close with, Stephen Wright, he's been to the Adelaide 6-day. He's very well known for going the distance.
Yeah.
He's also in recovery.
Yeah.
And I've known him for a while and we just hit it off and we're just talking through stories and the first 4 hours is really shit. It was just really hard to get into a rhythm because you're like, there's only 8 runners and there's no fanfare, there's no nothing.
Wow.
So this is my first time. I'm not really talking to anyone, doing loops, and then it sort of got into the first night, and I went, "Oh my God, I'm not even close to halfway. I'm only like 10 hours in," and by this point, I'm starting to go, can I do this? Can I do this? I'm hurting. Like, this all sucks. And Steve, the thing that got to me, like where I was like going deep on myself, I was talking to him at the 12-hour mark, and I'm like, I'm hurting. And he's like, no, just talk to me. So we're talking, and by us talking, I've already done 3 laps.
Yeah.
And he's like, wait, you just said you were hurting and you just ran another 1.2 kilometers. So, oh, and he goes, it's all up here, mate. It's all up here. Like, you are hurting, but you're not. You have control. And I went, holy shit. Like, so I went, oh, this is me. This is time to zen out a bit. Took the earphones out and just locked in for the next 4 hours.
Wow.
And I figured out, what I'm afraid of. I'm afraid, no, not. I believe I deserve to be in pain. I need to suffer to be better. I'm not worthy of life unless I suffer, which is a horrible way to look at things. Everyone talks about fighting their demons, and we don't have to go there, but one of the big things for me growing up, I was sexually abused when I was a child, and I always felt like it was my fault.
Yeah,
I was always, and suddenly this
you often hear that, don't you?
Yeah. And I realized it wasn't.
Yeah.
It was just this, like, I went so deep on myself, and it was like my higher self, or whatever you want to call it. My guiding angel just said, it's okay. I realized it's not my fault. It's not. And I've never felt like that before. Even though I'm in agonizing pain, I realized that it's actually going to be okay.
Yeah.
Coming into the second day, so, I put up a massive race recap. On the 34th hour, I finally hit my 100 miles, and that was the goal. Everything else is an extra bonus. And then suddenly my body went just run. And I was doing, 9-minute Ks, 8-minute Ks, around that. And then suddenly I did what was it? And both Achilles had gone at this point. So I couldn't run.
You were hobbled.
I was walking, no shoes, just socks on. And I ran a sub 21-minute 5K off.
Oh.
And I just don't know what happened, but I was on. And then suddenly it just went off, turn off, go back to normal, hurt, be in pain. It's all good. And that it was sort of those small things. It wasn't like, you read all these books, and, you can't imagine what it's like until you're there. I can't articulate it. I can't make people feel who listen to this what it felt like. I can't explain it. You have to do it. It's when you're in it. I call it. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, when you're on a 100-mile race, 100-kilometer race, when you're in it, no motivational music's going to get you through it. There's no fanfare to go, come on. Like, when you're in it, it sucks. It really, just that nitty-gritty life absolutely sucks. And I think that is where you find the most. Does that make
It does. I've had Pat Farmer on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I asked him, why do you run these long distances? And he said he just loves the way a really long run will pull you apart and then build you back up again. That's how he described it. I also have spoken to, I always forget his name. Anyway, another guy who does the Transcendence, who has done the Transcendence run I think it's in New York, that's put on by
Self-Trans.
Yeah, it's like 3,200 or something they do over 3 months, and you run between 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's a Sri Chimnoy, I always pronounce it incorrectly, event. And that is all about trying to, similar to what you're saying, but they do it over, a long period. But also I did my first 100K this year, a trail run, and I can totally understand all that. But on reflection, for me, for the event, there's something about the adventure. It might be my personality or whatever, but I just loved every minute of it, even though there was pain. And I do also do a lot of mindfulness and that acceptance of pain, that it's going to be there. And in fact, anything worth doing. So it's sort of what you were saying before when you said, that you have to have pain in order to whatever. But it's not the suffering. It's the choosing not to suffer. And maybe that's the difference. Like thinking we have to do, everything has to be hard in order to get somewhere. So yes, maybe it needs to be hard, but we don't have to suffer just because it's hard. Does that and that's what the mindfulness that's what I've been playing with for the last few years and trying to teach people a bit as well, which is kind of what you described. You choosing not to suffer, even though your body is going through pain and struggling from time to time.
But I'm at a point now with the training. Like I ticked off the Ironman Australia, and again, I didn't train that much. That is the common theme. I did my biggest week was 9 hours.
Wow.
And I was consistently doing 5 to 6 hour weeks of training. And I had a goal of 15 hours. And I walked away with 12 hours 53, which for me, which was like, I did it.
Yeah.
So I did the big thing, and it's been a month now, roughly. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, people are going, what's next? What's next?
I was just going to ask you that.
But I've realized I've just been chasing. I've been chasing the next big thing. And you hear this notion on social media that you got to be 1% better every day. You got to be 1% better, and you got to keep pushing. I'm going, well, wait a fucking minute. When does that finish? And how much better can you really get? I still look at these people who are doing these fantastic, phenomenal, feats of endurance, and I go, but you're still an asshole. Like to me, I look at you and go, you're not doing this for being 1% better every day. You're doing this for ego, because I used to do it for ego. I used to do it to feed that little boy in my head that wasn't good enough. But now I've done the thing, done the big thing. Why can't I just enjoy it? Why can't I? And the people are calling it post-race blues, and I'm like, well, I've had post-race blues before. I know what that feels like. This is like this is a different post-race blues. I want to enjoy running because I enjoy running. I don't want to have to prove that I'm a runner anymore. I don't want to have to prove that I do cycling. I'll put on Strava and that's fine, but I don't want to have to prove to anyone but myself that I'm an athlete. I don't even want to call myself an athlete. I'm just a person that enjoys lifting heavy things, and I like to move my body. But from being conditioned for so many years that, you have to do something big. What's next? Is it the next 200 miler, 300 miler, 400 miler? Where's that limit for all of us? Why can't we just, there's these ultras on the Gold Coast, or I guess everywhere. There's these veteran oldies. I'm talking, late 60s and 70s, who just turn up to these races. They've got an old school Garmin. They've got a bucket hat. They've got a bag, not a camel pack or Solomon. They're wearing running shoes. And they're signed up to 100 miler. And you're going, they're not doing that.
They mostly don't have Facebook.
But and their phone's a Nokia brick. And if they get in trouble, well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
I want to get to that point where I just do these, if I want to go run 100 mile, I just sign up and just do it. There's no big hoo-ha of look at me, look what I'm doing. I want to get to that point for these guys to go, holy shit, they're not doing it for any other reason, because they genuinely enjoy going to that place, feeling a bit of pain and finishing 100 miles. That's it. There's no, extrinsic, well, look at me, I'm doing this to find inner peace or anything. They're just doing it because they love it. Simple as that. That's where I want to get to, but it's easier said than done. I've got to undo so much to get to that point.
But you're young and you have plenty of time ahead of you. Thankfully. You do. For me, finishing the 100K trail run, well, it's actually 103 kilometers, but who's counting? And I reflected on it, and I've done plenty of reflection as well on the podcast and elsewhere. I do have an addictive personality too, I think, but it just has shown up in different ways. For me, I now can't wait to do my next, but for me, it's an adventure. Like what I crave is that adventure, that not knowing what's around the corner. Like in a couple of weeks, I'm about to get on a yacht with some friends who are going around Australia, and I'm getting on in Darwin with my husband, and we're staying on for 6 weeks until we get to Broome. I am so excited, but it's the adventure. It's that. It's not because I can put it on social, that I probably will, because that's part of what I do. But the adventure and what I see myself in the experience I'm having by exploring is I just get, even now, the goosebumps you were talking about earlier. Like talking about something, I get that, thinking about that, whether it's to go for a really long run that's going to push me, which I love, trying to find my limits. So it's not about, it's just trying to find my new limit. And as you said, I don't know what that is. And I think I've read something recently about we shouldn't limit ourselves, actually, because almost every time humans do, some other humans will come out and show that, we can run faster, go further, whatever, that we don't have the limits. We put it on ourselves. So it's just up to us to work out personally how we want to explore that for ourselves, rather than as external validation with other people. So that's how I play with it. And I know a lot of people that I've spoken to on the podcast, especially older people who are doing a lot of trail runs, and they're probably a lot of the people you're talking about before, who don't necessarily have more than maybe Strava, and that's about it. Like half of them, I can't find them on Facebook or something when I've got to talk to them. But they've dealt with a lot of that, and that's where they are at this point. What I love about a lot of the stuff that you've said is I can see your journey and that you've been on a journey, and that journey is just going to continue, and it'll take whatever path it takes, and it won't be like anyone else's, because we all are on a different journey. And that's what's really, I think, exciting about it, that it's not static. Like the things you say now, if we talk again in 10 years, it would be, you'll have slightly different ways to look at some of those things, or the future or whatever. And I just love that. But you've come so far already. I just think it's awesome. So, like, your story's been incredible.
You. But it's this, as you said, it's this journey of like self-discovery, and that's such a buzzword. Self-discovery. It's like, like I was taught this thing that has just always stuck with me. Our psyche is all cut up into parts. One part of me is a runner, one part of me is a father. And if I visualize now, I'm at a board meeting, and I've got the dad part of me sitting next to me, I've got the runner part of me, and we're all sitting around, and that's who makes up who I am.
Yep, all your identities.
All my identities. Then you ask the question, who's running the meeting?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
That's who I am, that's who I truly am.
Yeah.
Even with yourself, you ask that question of who is running the meeting? Who's the one holding space for all these parts of you? That's who you are. All the rest doesn't matter. I'm still, that's, I guess, where I'm trying to go with this is I don't think anyone's figured it out.
That's beautiful.
Who's running that meeting?
No, I love it. I think that's a great way to describe it. Because one of the things I talk about on the podcast a lot is identity. Like, I often will say to you, like, Kent, when did you first think of yourself as a runner? And then we'll kind of trundle through that. You don't have to answer that. I think you kind of touched on it before anyway, because then we talk about injury or things that stop you running, and then, or how do you feel when you can't run? Do you get really stroppy? What? And so a lot of that plays into what you were just talking about then too. And, that's what I mean. Like, I feel like your journey's already taken you quite a long way, even though you're still, I don't want to keep saying you're quite young. I don't mean that in any other way, apart from you've lived a lot of life already, 28 years, which is.
Oh, look, I think I've lived, I don't know if you're big, I'm very spiritual behind the scenes. I think I've lived, what would you call it? An old soul.
Yeah.
I think I've been through a lot, I'm still leveling up, and I guess my journey here is to just learn.
Mm.
Like that's all it is. There's so many teachers and everything.
There is.
Doesn't even have to be ultras, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know, the car breaks down or something. There's a teacher in that. Be more patient. You know, there's always something. There's always a teacher, and I think for me, my biggest teacher are my children. To be more patient. To be, I think in my lifetime, that's my purpose. To learn. And that sounds so
New agey.
yeah, but that's
doesn't make it wrong though. Like just because a word has been appropriated by a particular thing that goes on in our culture at this moment doesn't make it give it less power necessarily in our own lives, in our own journey and what we're doing.
But you know, for I guess for a young person, like, and I don't want to play the victim card because I'm not a victim, because I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for the things that happened. And you know, like I think everything that's happened to me was meant to happen to me. The transition now from I barely run. I've barely done any running. I did a run with Akana with Phil Gore. And that's about it. You know, I'm doing
We've
a few
both been on the
10Ks
podcast now, by the way.
Oh.
I had Phil before he was a world record holder. So.
Phil, you know, even to sit down with Phil, I wouldn't, you know, especially with my podcast, I wouldn't have made these connections with these amazing people.
Yeah.
For Akana, the world record holder, to invite me
awesome.
to dinner at her house, and Phil wanting to go for a run with me, and you know, that fills my cup. That's like, it's that human connection, and I guess that's a part of this journey. Like it's a part of the experience that I'm living now. You know, running is just a byproduct of what I'm doing at the moment. You know, cycling's a byproduct. It used to fill my cup, but it's not. The drug's not as good as it used to be.
Yeah.
You know,
how long do you think you'll run for? Do you have a vision of
forever?
That? Yeah.
I hate. I hate running and I love running. You know, I don't. Sometimes I get super excited to run, and others I just don't want to do anything. And that's my default state. I just don't. I'm lazy. I'm so fucking lazy. Like, so you know, today I forced myself to get on the bike and do at least 40 minutes on the bike. You know, hard threshold session.
Yeah.
Do some weights. You know, but I had to force myself. And would I have been able to do that without the, you know, consistent running and driving that do more? Probably not. But you know, down the long run, the literal long run, I'll always run. I'll always be physical in some way. That's a part of me. You know. Plus, I also have a thing with my body image that I want to be skinny. That's another whole different.
Yeah, it's another story, isn't it?
You know, but I've realized now with having this time off and sitting with myself that I need, you know, from a young age again, I've got to look good. I was a bodybuilder / powerlifter back in the day, and body image was another thing. And, you know, I don't want to get fat. I don't want to put on weight because I know what that feeling feels like. And, you know, so I'm always going to be fit and healthy in some way, shape or form, not just running. It can be gym, it can be cycling, it can be swimming, walking, whatever it is. I'll always be active in one way or another for my head, for my kids, for me.
Yeah, which will make you feel better up here as well, not just like you talked about body image and stuff. And I think that there's a whole lot of issues there that we all deal with. I think it's a kind of cultural thing, unfortunately. Anyway, running in particular, what do you think that gives you that you wouldn't be able to tap into if you didn't choose running as one of your sports?
Good question. Say it again. Say.
So I try and always say things from a positive perspective, but it's like what you wouldn't have if you didn't, you know, what your life would be missing if you weren't running. So, you know, what is running giving you that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get from the other sports that you achieve, that you play or do, or, you know, like the gym and the cycling and the swimming?
What does it give me?
What do you get from running that the others don't give you?
Nothing. It's not that I don't get anything from them. I think I've just
Mm.
done it long enough to, it's a part of me.
Mhm.
You know,
You talked about like, do you think you would get the same? You use different words, but to borrow the words of Pat Farmer, that breaking you down and building you back up again that you got in the 24-hour race,
I
or was it?
think that like that is, it gives me that sort of journey, I guess. But if I'm breaking it up into like, 5 kilometer runs here and there,
Mm.
the only thing I'm doing is trying to keep my body healthy.
Yep.
That's it. There's no like mental, I can't say running because it's all of it.
Mm.
It's the three disciplines: biking,
Yep.
running. It's just being active. So I
Mm.
guess to rephrase, it's, what is staying active given to me? It's just given me hope
Yep.
that I can get better in some way, shape, or form. Not just running, just because I love all. I can't, it's such a tough one with me because I really don't enjoy running that much.
You'd
Like
be
I
surprised how many people get on my running podcast and say they don't really like running, but they do it
like
for all these other reasons. Like, oh,
there's no
okay.
real other, like, I enjoy how it makes me feel, just like drugs and alcohol do. Like you get
Yeah.
that endorphin rush
Uh-huh.
and you get the runner's high. I do it for that.
Mm.
But other than that, I don't, only sometimes I wake up in the morning and go, "Oh, I want to go for a run." Only when I'm motivated.
Yeah.
And that goes for all of it. But I know if I don't do it, I go back into a hole. I have to move my body in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
That's what it gives me. I
When
think
have you?
that's most people as well.
Yeah, I think a little bit too, or at least if they're being honest with themselves. When when you finish any training run
Hmm.
or even an event, you feel better then. Like you know,
Yeah,
like
like
it's
again, it
a
plays
lot of
into
people say I
that.
didn't want to go running, but I knew once I finished, I'd be really happy that I did that kind of thing. Yeah, they.
I've always had Rich Roll. His quote is "Mood
Mhm.
follows action."
Yeah,
you know, and I still believe in that today. And
yeah, awesome.
again, doesn't have to be running. It could be going for a walk. But I know if I get out of the house, I know I'm going to feel better after, just
Mm.
because of the chemical reaction that happens after you run. That to listen to your own music or whatever it is that makes you happy. Again, brings it back to, does it make you happy? If it does, do it with health. You know what I mean?
We are not doctors. We are not medical professionals. Good. Check your
Hmm.
doctor first to see if what you're doing is safe. Um, are you more like you don't do trail, or do you do trail as well, or are
Yeah,
you
I've
more? Yeah,
done.
or you think you might have. I don't know.
I love trail running.
Mm.
I just don't have trails near my house. I've always told the story with, it wasn't these big events that, like, I
Mm.
remember this is my favorite run ever. Wasn't the 48 hour because it was just really painful and hard.
Yeah.
Wasn't the 100K, wasn't the 50Ks, it wasn't the 80Ks, 100K, 100 mile, it wasn't any of that. It was a 28-kilometer trail run by myself up in the mountains. It's called the Cream Track. It's on private property. It's this journey. It connects the Gold Coast hinterland
Mm-hmm.
to the coastal area.
Yeah.
And I was by myself. It was wet. It was cold. It was miserable. But I remember getting to the top of this, 600-meter elevation climb. You're climbing like that
Mm.
for 5K, but it's like within that 5K, 600 to 800 meters roughly gain.
Yeah.
So you're climbing straight up. It's hard. And then I'm running on this road that not many people are on. You're up in the mountains somewhere, and it was foggy. It was the mist. It was calm.
Yeah.
You can hear the trees, and I'm the only person up there. I'm the only soul running on this trail, and all I can hear is like like the pitter patter of my feet. Everything's great. That's the only way I can describe it. But that was my most memorable run,
Mm.
because it was me by myself with the wind, with the
Yeah.
rain, with the mist in nature. That's why I love trail running, to be
Mm.
free, to
Mm.
that's, if I'm going to say I love something, that it would be that.
Mm.
But it's so hard to find that.
Mm.
There's only sometimes if you're looking for it,
Mhm.
it's gonna run away.
elusive.
But when, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I love trail running. I just need more around, like real trails.
That is actually like the elusive nature of what you just said here is one of the reasons why I try and push mindful movement type stuff on people, because it's when you try and grab hold of those moments that it's like quicksilver. You can't hold on to them. But if you are being more present where you are, whether that's moving or running or whatever, you're meditating, whatever. But if you are running, and especially in trail runs, and you can be present in that moment, like all those things you just described was because you were really present in those moments. You are more likely to have those happen to you, and it won't be as elusive because you're being present, if that makes sense. It won't be just happening every now and then. That's what I try and encourage people to do. Wow. There's been so much stuff that we've gone through today. I've just loved every minute of it. Before we wrap up though, is there anything about running in particular that we haven't touched on that you would like to share? I'm obviously going to share your podcast in the show notes, and anything else you want me to. Quite happy so people can come over and listen to your podcast, because I'm sure they will. But is there anything about running in particular you'd like to share?
I think to whoever's listening, just do it because you love it. Don't do it for any external validation. Just do it because you want to do it. Do the big thing because you want to do it. Would ask yourself the question, would you do it if you didn't have social media? Would you do it for personal gain, or that little Strava segment at the end of the run? And I think we're all play into that. I'll put my hand up and say, it was fed by ego. But that's the only thing for me when it comes to running. For anybody else as well, I ask myself, am I doing this for ego, or am I doing this for me? Yeah, I think that's the last thing that's related to running.
We're all on that journey we talked about, so when you reflect and realize maybe it was an ego decision, that's okay too. But, the next part doesn't need to be, or whatever. Like if it's not feeding you really when you examine it. And often, because the ego is not necessarily always a bad thing, I guess is what I'm saying. It's finding that thing that works for you, really, as opposed to it being a kind of a hollow, I've done a 10K, now I need to do a 21K, now I need to do a marathon, because that's what everybody does. You've got to find what it is for you, I guess. I ask everybody for tips for a beginner runner at the end of podcast. So when people come up to you and say, Kent, I want to start running, what do you suggest they do?
Slow down.
Mm.
Slow down. I was, this is from personal experience. I wanted to, I see, and the comparison game plays into that. You see all these elite runners doing, sub 30-minute 10Ks, and you want to get to that in the first year. That ain't happening. This is a long game. For the person that's wanting to start off, you make the commitment. Don't even make the commitment, just do. Don't give yourself a time limit, just do. Slow down, enjoy it, and you will get there. Yeah. How much it was, Kipchoge, not Kipchoge. Who's the sprinter? Who's the sprinter? Usain Bolt.
I was going to say from the UK, but no, you meant the
the Usain Bolt. It took him 20 years to run 9 seconds or 8 seconds, whatever. It took him 20 years to get to that. And these, I guess, delayed gratification. You ain't gonna get it that quick. It took him 20 years to run 9 seconds, and you want to run a sub 10K or a sub 30-minute 10K.
I'm thinking sub 40. Depending on who it is that's listening. That's right.
But it takes years and years and years to, delayed gratification, enjoying the journey, enjoying the training, which I'm still trying to figure out. But slow down. Find a community run club. Find community's a massive one with running. Don't do it solo. Try not to do it solo if if you're an extrovert and you love people. If you're introverted, then do it solo. But slow down and enjoy. Enjoy what you've got now, because anything can happen. You're able-bodied now. You can do it now. So do it now and enjoy.
Good point. I love that, because who knows what's happening tomorrow or in the next 5 minutes. That's the only thing we have is right now. That's just another mindfulness thing. Of course. Kent, it has been an absolute delight. I've thoroughly loved learning more about you. You're an amazing soul. Thank you for coming on and being so vulnerable. I really appreciate it. And I know you will have inspired heaps of people. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. It's just nice to be, I guess, the speaker, the talker, not the questioner, the interviewer, to be at the receiving end. It's just nice. It's like I call it therapy session, sort of, that I don't have to pay for.
That's what I call this podcast, my therapy session. So thank you for being part of it.
Wow. Yeah, thank you so much. And if Akana, you're listening this far in, thank you so much for connecting us. It's really, really nice.
She's a superstar. Don't jump off straight away. But again, massive thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the FitMIND FitBODY podcast. I'd love to talk to you about your running journey. Send me a message on Facebook or on the website and let's do it. I also wanted to let you know that I've created an email list so you won't miss any podcast episodes. You'll find details in the show notes and on the FitMIND FitBODY website, along with a bunch of resources on mindful running. They'll help you to get and stay mentally and physically fit. And I'll see you there. Plus, I'll be back here in your podcast player a few times a week. Hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you would leave a review. It'll help more people to find the podcast and get inspired to start running and ultimately to improve their life. See you soon.